and welcome to the next installment of our Evergreen Basics or new staff series. Today we'll be talking about holds management, and within that context, we'll be talking about the holds targeter, the different types of holds that you're able to place within Evergreen, some different options for placing holds for groups, managing existing holds, and then a little bit about working with the pull list. We're going to start by talking about the holds targeter. And when we talk about the holds targeter, I'm not going to go into extreme detail about all of the different ways that policies interact and things like that, but I'm going to talk about the general gist of what's happening when a hold request is made. So the hold targeter is essentially the function that Evergreen uses to determine which items are eligible to fulfill hold requests. And it does this in sort of a complex way where it looks at a lot of different factors in order to figure out what are the best items to be targeted to fulfill a hold. In doing so, it sort of uses a prioritization schema where it sort of tries to figure out what's going to be the quickest hold, the quickest way to get a title into a patron's hands. And then it also looks at patron eligibility, whether or not a patron is even eligible to check out the item once that hold becomes available. And if that patron's not eligible, then it's going to hold off on making that hold available to them. One of the main things that impacts hold eligibility is age hold protection. So we'll talk a little bit about what that is. In some situations, you may come across items that hold requests that simply cannot be fulfilled, and those are known as hopeless holds. So we'll talk a little bit about those. And one thing that can kind of override the general targeter is opportunistic capture. So we'll talk about what that is and when it comes into play. As I go through this, please feel free to put any questions that you may have in chat. If you have seen something in action that has confused you related to this, let us know what it is, and we'll see if we can kind of explain what was going on in that situation. Sometimes it takes some deeper digging to understand what's going on when something doesn't act the way you expect it to. But if we're able to explain what happened within the context of this, we will. So we're going to talk first about that prioritization. How does Evergreen determine which item is the best item to fulfill a hold request? So a patron comes in, they make a request for a title, a staff member helps them place that, or the patron places it themselves within the OPAC. Evergreen immediately starts beginning to target copies to fulfill that hold. And it does it in a specific order. The first thing it's going to do is look to see if the pickup branch has an available copy of that item. And what that means is regardless of what the patron's home library is, regardless of where the patron made the request, wherever the patron wants to pick the item up, if that branch has a copy that's currently available, it's going to target that item, which means that if, say, I'm in the Buncombe County Public Library System, I have a patron who comes into the South Asheville branch, and they have a home library of the PAC branch, and they ask to borrow an item and have it available for pickup at the Black Mountain branch. Black Mountain is where Evergreen is going to look to target that hold first. Even if the patron's home library of PAC has a copy, even if the South Asheville branch where the patron physically is has a copy, the targeted copy, the copy that's actually going to be pulled off the shelf to fulfill the hold will be at Black Mountain because that's where the patron's asking to pick it up. Now, obviously, if the patron's physically in a branch that has a copy, they're probably just going to pick that up and check it out. But if for whatever reason they'd rather place the hold and then pick it up at a different branch, that branch is going to be the first priority copy. If the pickup branch does not have a copy available, so either it doesn't own a copy at all, or the copy it does own is currently checked out by another patron or actively on the hold shelf for another patron, then the hold targeter is going to go out to the next sort of level of eligibility. And it's going to look at items within the entire system. So if we're in Buncombe, it's going to look at every branch in the Buncombe system to determine what branch does have a copy that's available. And it's just going to target that one. So the next one that it finds within that system. If the system does not have an available copy, so either there are no copies owned by the system or every copy is currently in use by another patron, then we go into resource sharing. And that's when Evergreen is going to start looking around at other libraries outside of the system to determine who owns a copy of this that has it available currently. And it does this by geographic proximity. So it's going to start with the library that it determines to be closest. And this proximity is determined from hub to hub. So anyone who works with resource sharing is familiar with this concept that each library system has a resource sharing hub where all of the resource sharing activity is sort of centralized. And that distance for determining proximity is going to be based on the distance from one hub to another hub in terms of that, in order to determine what's going to be the quickest transit time. And that's really what we're trying to do here. What Evergreen is trying to do is find the item that's going to get to the patron as quickly as possible. Obviously, an item in the pickup branch is going to be the quickest option because there's no transit needed at all. An item within the system will be the next quickest because it's going to be based just on that library system's courier and what that schedule looks like. And then going into resource sharing, the closer a hub is to the pickup systems hub, the faster the transit by FedEx will be from one library to another. So overall, the targeter is attempting to determine what's the quickest way that I can get this title into the patron's hands. Obviously, it's not 100% perfect because if the closest library doesn't ship theirs out until next Tuesday and a library a little further away would have shipped out tomorrow, obviously there's a bit of a disconnect there, but there's only so much that the software is able to do to determine what's going to be quickest, and proximity is the way that it does that. Um, Once an item has been identified as available to fulfill the hold, it goes onto the owning library's pull list. So wherever this item is shelved right now, it'll show up on that pull list. And then when that library goes out to pull their holds, it'll be pulled and captured. There is a sort of fail-safe included in this that if the owning library does not pull it within 24 hours, it'll be retargeted and it'll go to the next library within this sort of proximity list. So that allows for, if you have a library that fails to pull their items one day because they've got somebody out sick or something like that, the patron's not going to feel too much of an effect from that because it's going to just automatically go on to the next library. And so all of this kind of comes together to make resource sharing and holds in general move fairly quickly and fairly smoothly. And that's the general goal of the targeting method that Evergreen uses. Any questions about that? All right. Well, let's talk next about patron eligibility. So patron eligibility comes into play at two different points in the hold process. The first is when the patron actually makes the hold request. And the first thing Evergreen's going to do when a patron makes a hold request, whether they're doing it through the OPAC or staff is helping them, is they're going to check to make sure the patron would actually be eligible to check out this item if it were to come in and become available for them. The first three things related to this are fairly self-explanatory, but then there are two others that are a little bit more complex. The first is that this patron's account is not currently blocked, it's not currently barred, and it's up to date. It hasn't expired. If it's blocked, that generally means that a circulation related function has caused the account to be blocked. So either there's too many overdues or the patron owes too much money in bills or something like that. Barring is generally a manual action on the part of a library due to external issues with a patron. So nothing having to do with circulation related things, but instead, maybe behavior within the library. And then expiration, patron accounts will automatically expire, generally speaking, every 3 years. There are some exceptions to that, but every 3 years. If a patron's account has expired, they won't be able to place holds until that expiration has been extended. Um, so those three are fairly self-explanatory. If a patron is in any of those states when they make a hold request, then that hold request will fail. The other two are a little bit more complicated. The first one is that local hold policies have to allow the hold for the patron. There are a lot of different things that can impact that. It could be that if the patron's request is for a title for like a playaway or sort of an unusual format like that, and the only library that owns that title in that format does not lend playaways via resource sharing, then the patron would not be eligible for that hold because they're trying to pick it up at a place where it would need to go through resource sharing, and resource sharing is not an option for that particular item type. You might also have situations where certain patron types are not eligible for holds. So some libraries may make it so that limited patron types cannot place holds. So if a patron, say, is an adult limited patron, they may not be eligible for a hold because of their patron type. So there are a lot of different factors that go into hold policies. We're not going to get into those today, but oftentimes what will happen is that if you get an error when attempting to place a hold for a patron, the issue that's at play has to do with a hold policy. So typically you'd bring that to our attention by submitting a help ticket, and we take a look at it and figure out, which hold policy is being used in this particular hold request, and what factor of that hold policy is at odds with this particular request. And then the final one is max holds. This seems very straightforward, but it can get a little bit complicated. Um, the sort of generic number of holds available that patrons can have is 25. But that can be um, that may not always be the case. Different item types may have different limits. Different patron types may have different limits, and some libraries may have lower limits. So when a patron attempts to place a hold, they may hit a max hold error. And it may be that you, as the staff member, are surprised by that, because it's possible that the hold policy that would be at play for a particular type of item or particular format or shelving location may actually be attempting to block hold requests. And the way that it may do that is by making a max hold of 0. So you may get a max hold error when placed in a hold. When really what's happening is it's simply not an eligible hold, but the way that that eligibility is addressed is through max hold of 0. We have a question in chat. What if the parent uses the child's card to place a hold when the parent card is blocked? The request is still active in that case because whole accounts are not linked in that way. Even if you have grouped accounts between parents and children, a block on one grouped account would not cause blocks on the rest of the accounts. So, you know, um, there's not a an automatic mechanism in Evergreen that would stop that type of thing. If you do have a local policy against allowing that, it's something that you would have to enforce completely manually, because there's not any way for Evergreen to create that type of blocking. Um, any other questions related to that? So generally speaking, as I said a few minutes ago, patron eligibility comes into play at 2 points during the hold process. The first is when the request is made. So as a staff person, you may be attempting to place a hold and get a little error. In some cases, that error can be overridden. In other cases, it's possible that if it's a situation where the patron's account has just expired, you can go and extend that patron's account, and then you'll be able to move forward with the hold. The other time that patron eligibility can be a problem is when the hold goes to be captured. So it is possible, and it is actually more common than you might expect, for a patron to be in good standing and the um, an item that would fulfill their hold request to be available and to be targeted and to go on a library's pull list. And then that library goes out, pulls the book off the shelf, but when they return to a computer to capture it, that eligibility has changed. And so what happens in that situation is that the staff member scans the book and nothing happens. Instead of the hold being triggered and a hold slip printing, it just nothing happens. And what has generally happened in that case is either the hold has been retargeted, and so it's just moved on to another library's pull list during between the time that your pull list was printed and the time that the item made it back to the desk to be scanned, that the 24-hour period has passed and the hold has been retargeted. It may be that the hold has been canceled in that interim, or it may be that the patron's eligibility has changed, that in that interim time, the you know, the patron's materials have gone overdue and they've got too many overdues, or an item has been marked lost or something like that. And that does happen. Um, the first thing to do in a situation like this, when you scan an item that was on your pull list and it does not trigger that hold capture, is to go back and look at your pull list and see if that item's still showing up. If it's no longer showing up, then it's simply no longer on your pull list. Your item is no longer targeted, so you can just go ahead and reshelve it. Um, if it's still showing up on the pull list, there may be something else going on. You can reach out to us and we'd be happy to dig into it for you. But typically, even if it's a situation of patron eligibility, the item should probably no longer be showing up on the pull list, simply because the item that hold is no longer active. It remains on the patron's account until they're able to check it out, but it's no longer eligible for fulfillment in that moment, if that makes sense. Um, any questions related to that? All right, well, we're going to talk next about age hold protection. So this is an element of the hold targeter that essentially allows libraries to prioritize their own patrons for holds on new items. It prevents items from fulfilling holds at external libraries during a period of time after they're purchased. This is based entirely on the active date of the item. So let me show you um, what this means. So if I am looking at the item details for this particular item, I can see down here that there is a field for date active, and that was August 6th. There's also a date created, and for this particular item, that is a different date than the active date. So what this means is that the library purchased this item or began cataloging this item in July, but they did not complete that process until early August. And that's fairly common, especially for a lot of our larger systems. Basically, between these two periods of time, the item would have been in a status of in process or on order. And as long as it's in one of those statuses, it is not yet active. It becomes active as soon as it moves from one of those two statuses into an active status. So typically that's going to mean available or reshelving or something like that. Um, and basically, when you're cataloging something and you do that final scan to check it in and make it available, that's when the item becomes active. So you may have a little bit of a lag between the time that a catalog record was created for an item and the time that it becomes active. It is the second date, the active date, that is used for age hold protection. So even if you have, say, 2 months between when you order something and when you actually have it available for your patrons, it's that 2 months does not go into your age hold protection. So you don't have to worry that you're limiting the amount of time that something is age hold protected. It's entirely based on this second date. Um, there are two types of age hold protection available. there is 6-month age hold protection, and this prevents an item from fulfilling a hold from external systems for 6 months after activation. This does allow holds at other branches within your system, though. So if you have, an item that you've purchased for your branch, and another branch within your system has a patron that is at the top of the queue for that item, your hold would, or your item would fulfill that other patron's hold in another branch. However, there is, for those larger systems that maybe don't want to have too much of that happening with new items, there is an option called 3-month age hold protection. This is not as widely used as the 6-month, but this would keep an item purely in-house, or it can be checked out, it can be placed on hold, but only for pickup at the owning branch. So if patrons at the owning branch want it, they'd be eligible to place a hold for it, but anyone else would go on the waiting list until that 3 months has passed. Now, if this is something that you use in your library, it's really important to note that it will not revert automatically to 6 months once the 3 months has passed. Patron or staff do need to go in and add the 6-month once the 3 months is over. And it's not like you get 3 months of local and then another 6 months. The 6 months begins at the active date, even if 3 of those months were under 3-month age hold protection. So once this is placed, you can revert it to 6 months, and you'll have a remaining 3 months of that 6-month age hold protection. It's a little bit confusing, but basically you have a total of 6 months in which an item can be protected by age hold protection. 3 of those 6 months can be used for local protection, allowing the item to only be placed on hold for pickup at the owning branch. Most libraries just use the 6-month, but we do have a few that use the 3-month. Sometimes they'll use it just for, specific highly popular items. Regardless of which type of protection you use, it will be removed automatically when the protection period expires. So as soon as you hit that 6 months, it will no longer be age hold protected, and the designator will go away automatically. Sometimes there's a small lag, so you may have, 6 hours, 12 hours, a full day in which it still shows age hold protection is happening. But as long as you're past that active date, that protection is no longer in place. The tag should remove automatically, though, within a few hours. Okay, so we asked for somebody to repeat the part about 3 to 6. How age hold protection reverts from a 3-month to a 6-month. So at 3 months, if you've applied 3-month age hold protection to an item, when that 3-month period has passed, it will automatically be removed. 6-month age hold protection will not replace it automatically. So you would have to go in and manually change it to 6-month age hold protection. And a lot of libraries that do use this run reports, sort of a daily report, what had 3-month age hold protection expire today. And then they go in and they change those manually to 6-month age hold protection. If you don't do that manual change, then there is no age hold protection anymore at all once the 3 months has passed. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's specific to that. I think really it's just a matter of making sure that you are manually going in and changing it. Oh, and also, of course, that 6-month age hold protection is still going to expire 6 months from the activation date. So it's not an additional 6 months after the reversion happens. It is 6 months from the activation date, even if 3 of those months were used for the local protection. All right. Any other questions related to age hold protection? Now, we have had questions in the past about can we reapply age hold protection for older items that suddenly become popular again? You can't. The only way that you can do that is by ordering new copies of them so that you have new activation dates. It doesn't matter what the publication date of something was, just when you activate it. So if you order new copies of an older title, then you can apply 6-month age hold protection to those newly ordered copies. But the old ones that you've had circulating for the last several years, um, you can't sort of retroactively apply age hold protection to. All right, one last thing that I wanted to, well, actually two more things that I wanted to talk about in terms of the targeter. The first one is hopeless holds. So a hold is considered hopeless if there are no potentially eligible copies in the entire catalog. Now, if there are no copies at all, they just simply don't exist, then no hold could be placed because there's no record to place a hold on. Hopeless is when a record exists and items exist, but those items are in a status that cannot fulfill a hold, which primarily means missing or lost. An item being checked out can fulfill a hold when it's returned. That's a temporary status with a definite end date. Lost and missing are, could be temporary, but the assumption is that they are not. And there is definitely not an end date to when that status may revert. So a hold is hopeless if all items attached to the record for the hold are in one of those statuses that are considered permanently incapable of fulfilling a hold. You can get a list of hopeless holds at your library underneath the administration menu under local admin hopeless holds. So let's take a look at that briefly. So we're going to come in here and we're going to look at hopeless holds, and you can scope it to the pickup library for the hold. And you can also scope it by date. So currently I'm looking all the way back to 2016. You're probably not generally going to want to do that. But this allows you to kind of really zero in on what can be taken care of right now. And if I look at this list of potentially hopeless holds, I see that most of them have a C under hold type. Hold types, we'll talk about this next, can be title, copy, or meta record. The C refers to a copy hold, which means that these holds are being placed on a specific barcode, not any title that could, or any item that could fulfill a title request, but a very specific copy of that title. And those are fairly prone to hopeless. So that's actually something that we recommend you avoid doing. We'll talk about that in a few minutes though. If you come into your hopeless list, you've got a couple of options. The first thing you want to do is take a look and see, is there a reason that this is hopeless? And is there a way that I can find a new method of capturing this hold? So for these copy holds, the way that you might do that, if I take a look at the item here, I can see that it's got a status of missing. Unless this item is found, it's never going to fulfill this hold. But if I go into the record for this title, I see that we have 42 copies of it, and a few of them are in statuses that would be hopeless. We've got lost, discard weed, another lost, and of course the missing one that we have on our hopeless list here. So really all I would do in this situation is redo that patron's hold and turn it into a title level hold. A copy is going to be is going to be targeted almost immediately, and hopefully we'll get in for this patron fairly quickly. So when you see this where you've got a hold type of C in your hopeless list, the best way to fix that is to just change that, make a new hold for that patron as a title level hold, and then you have a much wider list of potential copies that could fulfill the hold. Now for these that have a T, it's not quite as simple because generally speaking, if a title level hold is hopeless, that means there's probably only 1 or 2 copies attached to that title record, and they're obviously in a hopeless state. But one thing that you can do is check to see maybe there are other records that are for the same item. So let's take a look at this record. So I'm looking down here at the item list and I do see that there is only one copy and it is in a status of missing. But let's try searching for this title. I'm going to search for the title. I'm also going to go ahead and search for the author just to really narrow it down. And I see that the shelving location of this one is large print paperback. So I'm assuming that the patron wants the large print specifically. So I'm going to narrow my search also to large print book. And in doing this, I do find that there is another record that has a number of copies available for it. So what I'd want to do in this case is transfer the hold from the record that is hopeless to this other record that has a number of available potential copies. And that's going to make it so that this patron's able to get this hold. Now, there are going to be times that something's hopeless and that's just the way it is. It's the only copy in the entire consortium and it's not available to fulfill a hold. That does happen, but generally speaking, if something's hopeless, there's probably a chance that you're going to find something else that can fulfill it. And in those cases, it's either a matter of taking a copy level hold and expanding it up to a title level hold, or finding a different record. Now, in a case like this, you may want to take this to a bibliographic cataloger, ask them about potentially merging it, since if your library does not own that missing copy, you may not want to merge because you may not be able to confirm that it's definitely the same as this other record. In this case, I'm pretty sure it is, but take it to a bibliographic cataloger. They can make that determination. But in the meantime, you can transfer the hold from one to another. So let's do that really quick, actually. So if I wanted to transfer this hold, I would come up here to the record for the new title record that I'd like to place a hold on. And I would choose Mark for Title Hold Transfer. And then I can come back to my hopeless hold and I can transfer to marked title right here from the action menu in here. And that has just taken this hold. It's no longer hopeless because now that hold request is showing up on this newly discovered record that has a number of different possibilities. And if I come in here and look at view holds here, then I can see that this Bethlehem hold that I wanted has now been transferred over to this title record. So it is a fairly simple process to make that change if you need to. Any questions about hopeless holds? All right, well, let's take a look at opportunistic capture and then we'll move on to talk about hold types. So opportunistic capture, gone too far, basically is a hold is captured when an item comes in if the pickup library for a hold request matches the library where an item is checked in. So even if the patron who is going to now receive this hold is not next in the queue, if they have a pickup location that matches the check-in location, they'll be moved to the top of the queue. And basically this allows, again, that efficiency of getting holds out to patrons because it means that not only does the patron who is now getting this hold first get it sooner, but every patron after them is going to get it sooner because there's that extra transit time is no longer being factored in. So typically if something is being transited for resource sharing, we're looking at probably about 4 weeks total. And it can be less, and it's often less, but 4 weeks total in transit time because the transit to the library where it'll be picked up, as well as the transit either back to the owning library or to the next library. That transit time is cut out with opportunistic capture. So the entire queue is going to move just a little bit faster as a result of that method. So basically, if the copy that's being checked in can fulfill a local hold, it's going to target for that hold. If there's not a matching hold at the check-in queue or at the check-in library, then it's going to go in transit for the next hold in the queue at a different library. Let's just take a look at that in practice really quickly. So if we take a look at this record for songs in Ursa Major, and we look at the holds list for that, we have 4 holds, all with pickups at different libraries. And the 4th person in the queue is Sarah Training, who wants to pick the item up at PAC. Let's say the item was actually returned to PAC. And I hope this works, because sometimes when I try to show this, something that I'm not thinking of is at play and it doesn't work, but we're going to try it. I check the item in when it is returned to PAC, and it goes to the public hold shelf for Sarah Smith. She was 4th in the queue. She's been bumped up to the top of the queue because the item was returned to the library where she's picking it up. So if I go back to the holds for this item, Sarah is now, the item's been captured for her. Everybody else is still on here. Everybody else is still in the queue order they were in before. And so now when another one is checked in somewhere, it's going to come up here to North Asheville for Buffy Summers. And then the next one will come up to Alexander, Maine. And the next one will come to Wilkes, regardless of where they're checked in. Now, if something's checked in at Wilkes next, then Liz Lemon's going to get that title, even though she's 3rd in the list. So opportunistic capture can make the hold queue go out of order, but it does it in a way that does make this faster, generally speaking, for everyone. Any questions about opportunistic capture? Right, well, let's talk about the different hold types. Oh, we've got a question. So opportunistic capture, when it comes to age hold protection, the question was whether or not this would be the same with age hold protection. Basically is the same, because most of the time, if something's under age hold protection, it's being returned at the same library that owns it, because the patron who checked it out last probably checked it out from that owning library. In the rare cases where somebody has returned it, 6-month age hold protection is anywhere in the system. So, if something is, so the queue can bounce around a little bit because of branches. In the rare situation where somebody maybe returns a book outside of that owning system, so maybe I checked the book out at High Point and then I return it at Davidson, it will not opportunistically capture for a hold at Davidson. It would return to High Point because it's under age hold protection and High Point owns it. If I check something out under age hold protection, 6-month age hold protection at PAC, and return it at South Asheville, they're in the same system. So a South Asheville hold would trigger an opportunistic capture for a patron that wants to pick it up there, because it would generally transit between branches within that system under the 6-month age hold protection. 3-month age hold protection, I've never tested this, but I believe that it would not opportunistically capture outside of its branch, because it is under age hold protection and can only trigger holds for pickup at the owning branch during that 3-month period. I know that during the 6-month period, it will not trigger opportunistic capture if for some reason it is returned outside of its system. It will be returned to its system and it will go to fulfill an in-system hold. Does that answer your question and make sense? All right, so let's talk about hold types. We did touch on this briefly with hopeless holds. Oh, we've got one more question. If a request comes into our branch and the particular item number is missing, will holds cycle to another available copy at our branch, or will it fulfill from another branch? So if the request is for pickup at your branch and your branch's copy is missing, as long as this is a title hold, not a copy hold, um, then yes, the targeter will recognize that your branch's copy could not fulfill that hold, and it will next look outside of your branch. If you have another copy at your branch, it's going to choose the copy that is available at your branch. So if you have two copies of something, one is missing and the other one's available, the targeter will target the available one. If you have two copies, one is missing and one is checked out, the targeter will immediately go to your system and see if there is another library within your system that has it. And if it is still not able to fulfill something with basically something that is in a status of available, then it's going to go into resource sharing. So if you have something, a title at your branch that's missing, then the targeter will not consider it. It will immediately go on to the next step within that priority step. All right, so there are a couple other hold types outside of these, but generally they're not used. For the most part, there are three different hold types. There are title level holds, there are copy level holds, and there are meta record holds. Now, title level holds are the default hold type. When you place a hold, this is the type that is generally placed if you're doing it through one of the sort of standard methods. This is a hold on the entire bib record, which means any item attached to that bib record could fulfill that hold. It's going to target based on proximity, just like we discussed at the beginning. It can be placed by patrons on the OPAC, and it can be placed by staff in the staff client. If for some reason an item is the item that's targeted is not a good choice for that, it can be retargeted. And we'll talk about that in a moment, although that's kind of one of the things that we've already looked at. But we'll talk about what retargeting is in more detail in a moment. A title level hold is pretty standard. Typically speaking, it's placed by doing a catalog search. Which has decided to go really slowly, and clicking this green button, or going directly into a record and clicking the place hold button up here. That is the standard way to place a title level hold. If you start from the patron's account, you can, you know, place the hold from the patron's account. That is going to take you into the catalog search. The process is the same. You just have you don't have to enter the patron's information. So if I place the hold here, this is where I would enter the patron's information. If I started at the patron's account to place the hold, this information would already be filled in. We recommend that you do title level holds as much as possible. They are the best way to ensure that holds are fulfilled efficiently. And we saw why that was when we looked at those hopeless holds. Most of the holds in that hopeless list were copy level holds. There is a mechanism for placing copy level holds, and there may be situations where you want to do that. The patron specifically wants their library's copy of something, or a specific copy within the consortium is annotated versus other copies attached to the same record, which are not. There are a number of reasons that a patron might want a specific copy. Outside of those specifically stated reasons, unless the patron has specifically stated, I want this copy, we recommend that you do a title hold, not a copy hold. To do a title or a copy hold, and I will show you the process of doing that. It is possible to do that. Basically, there are a few different ways. The easiest way is to come into the bib record, find the title that you specifically want to place the hold on. And request an item. So you would go into the title record itself and you'd request the item. At this point, when you do this, you have the option to choose your hold type. It's going to automatically put you into copy hold. You can switch it to title hold if you wanted to, but if you're specifically trying to do a copy hold, then you would keep it at copy hold and you'd put in your user barcode and go from there. You can also, from this item table itself, you can click on item hold and you get the same sort of interface that you get with the bib record hold, but this is specifically for a copy level hold. There may be times that this is done by accident. And if that's the case and everything goes fine, that's not a big deal. If you've discovered when a patron comes in and asks, I asked for this book 6 months ago and I still haven't gotten it, and you realize it's because it's a copy level hold and that copy is, in has been checked out to an institutional account for 6 months or something like that. You can switch it to a title level hold by simply coming in here and placing a hold the way you normally would. And in a situation like that, where the patron has been waiting for 6 months for their specific copy and you're switching it to a title level hold, you can place the hold and then you can move them to the top of the queue. Generally speaking, we don't recommend doing that, but in a situation like that, you might decide that it's the best way to fulfill that efficiently for them. So copy level holds are barcode level. They're on specific copies. Only one item can be targeted for that. There is no way for any other item to be targeted. Once a copy level hold has been placed, then only that copy will do. These holds can only be placed by staffs. Patrons cannot do an item level hold from the OPAC. So they do have to come in and make that request directly to staff. Any questions about copy level holds versus title level holds? All right, well, let's talk briefly about meta record holds. This is a slightly less used type of hold, but it can be super useful. This basically allows you to place holds on multiple connected records. So in a broad sense, this means that you can place a hold on a title, and the thing that fulfills that hold may end up being a book, a large print book, an audiobook, a playaway, a DVD. Because the title's the same, you could get anything. In practice, that's not really what's going to end up happening. You can select the types of formats you're willing to accept for this hold, but it allows you to do a wider hold umbrella where you can, if you have a patron who's happy to take either the large print or the regular print, you can do a single hold that whichever one of those records becomes available to fulfill that hold first would go to that patron. If you have a patron who's happy to have either the DVD or the Blu-ray of something, you can place a single hold that covers records for each of the different formats, and whichever one becomes eligible first is the one that will fulfill that hold. Now, this doesn't result in them getting multiple things. They don't get the DVD and the Blu-ray. They'll just get whichever one is eligible first. Patrons can place these holds as well, so they are available via the OPAC. And the targeting works the same as it does with a title level hold. It's going to start at your branch, move out to your system, and eventually move out to the closest library outside of your system. Let's take a look at how this process actually works, because it actually took me a little while to kind of wrap my head around it. So I think an example is helpful. So let's do a search for one shot. And we get 23 results. And as we sort of scroll down, we see that we've got a large print book. We have a regular print book. We have a CD audiobook. We have a playaway. We have another large print book. We have another regular print book and another regular print book. And another regular print book. So a patron wanting this title could come in and ask to place a hold on it. And maybe you think, the best option is to do this one that has 60 items attached to it. And that's probably true. But if you want to give the patron the very best shot, especially at the point, like right now, all these are available. It's a fairly old book. But at the point when this was new, it could be a really long wait. If you have a situation like this where you have a lot of different potential things that could fulfill this request, for example, a large print and a regular print, or records that really need to be merged because they're all different regular print records for the same title, In any of those cases, you might want to create sort of an umbrella hold that's going to pull in any of those potential options. And in order to do that, you just change your search up here to group formats and editions. You redo your search. And we've gone from 23 results down to 8 because we're now seeing that these different formats are being grouped together. So we have one record showing up here for that includes the large print book, ebook, e-audio, regular print book, CD audio, preloaded audio, and playaway. So I could place a hold on any one of these by clicking place hold here. I put in my patron's information just as I would normally. And I come down here where I can see that I'm placing a meta record hold. Before I place the hold though, I want to limit this down to the specific things that I actually want. I don't want the audiobook. I'm happy to have a book or a large print book, and I'm happy for that book or large print book to come from any of the potential records that I found in my first search that were for the print or large print book of this title. So in order to do that, I'm going to remove the CD audiobook, and I'm also going to remove the Spanish language version because that's probably mixed up in these records as well. So now I could get any one of the records that has the format of book or large print book in English for this title. I place the hold, and now there are a number of potential copies. And in fact, let's go into our patron account for this and take a look at her holds. And we see right here it is. And we see that it has a hold type of M. And I'm going to add potential items to my grid here. I have 80 potential items. So that one record that I thought would probably be the best one had 60 potential items. I've added 20 additional items that could fulfill this hold by doing that meta record hold. So this is useful, especially when you have those situations where either the patron does not care that much about the format, so they're happy with DVD or Blu-ray, or they're happy with large print or regular print, or a situation where you have a number of duplicate records that have not yet been merged and you'd like to go ahead and place the hold before that merging happens. Any questions about meta record holds? All right, well, we're going to talk about how to place. Okay, so to place a meta record hold, you start in the catalog search, just like you would for a standard title hold. And you choose this group formats and editions option. Everything moving forward is the same as a title hold, with the exception of choosing those formats. So if I do my search for Jack Reacher again, and I've grouped formats and editions, I can see that I am looking at meta records. Once the search is complete, I can see that I'm looking at meta records because I see all of these different format icons in a single spot within the results list. At that point, I can just place my hold. And when I place my hold, I can choose the formats that I specifically want. All right, any other questions? Well, let's talk about placing multiple holds. So I'm assuming that most people here have placed a hold for a single individual patron at least once. If you have not and you do want some help with that, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to walk you through it separately. But for the purposes of the webinar, I wanted to show how to place multiple holds at once. And there are two different options for that. They work differently and they are used sort of for different functions. Let's see, somebody has asked in the chat, what happens if you place a hold on a new title while it is still on order or in process, and then your system ends up not buying the title or creates a new record for the title? So if your system ends up not buying it, but so like you've created a record, it is your title or your copy that is on that record is in process or on order, and patrons begin placing holds, theoretically, as other libraries are buying that title, they are going to be adding their holdings to that record that you created. They aren't each creating their own individual records. Our cataloging standards, at the very least, ask them to put that on that existing record that you created when you made your purchase. And so even if you decide not to buy your copy, another library will theoretically have purchased a copy of it. And so then the holds would work the way they would in any situation where you don't have a copy of something, but another library does, and it would be resource sharing. They'd probably have to wait 6 months because of 6-month age hold protection. But once that protection period has expired, then they'd be in the queue just like anybody else. Now, if you have a situation where you have created a new record, what I'd recommend you do is take that original record that for whatever reason you decided not to use and merge it onto the new record, and that's going to pull any holds with it. So if you merge records, the holds will merge as well. Does that answer your question? All right. So the two different types of sort of multiple holds that we have available in Evergreen are patron group holds and multiple holds on a single title. These are two different functions, and they're used for sort of different reasons, but both of them result in being able to place lots of holds with one action, which is really nice. If anybody's ever done book club holds before, you know how tedious it can get to place hold after hold after hold. So the first one is patron group holds. This allows you to create a specific list of patrons who want to have holds placed automatically. So this can be used for the type of book club where you have specific members who meet regularly and are always included in sort of the title requests. So if you have a group of 12 people and they are a regular book club and they meet every month and they always read a book together, you can put them into a hold group, and then you can place a single hold that will then go on each of their accounts, and each of them will get a copy of that title when it becomes available. This is also super useful if you have a situation where, you have lots of patrons who every time David Baldacci publishes a new book, they'd like to be on hold for it immediately. You can create a hold group for that author. Or if you have patrons who all love Amish romance, and every time you get a new Amish romance in, they want to check it out, you can create a hold group for those patrons. Let's take a quick look at this. So hold groups are under the circulation menu. And there are a number of them. I'm going to change the order of owner. So I see mine at the top. And this new Cozy Mysteries is the group that I've created. So this is a group of patrons who, as soon as my library gets a new Cozy Mystery in, they want to be on hold for it. They don't care what the author is. They don't care what the title is. If it's Cozy Mystery, they'd like to read it. So I'm going to open up the group. I see that I have 4 patrons who are in this group. And when my library gets a new Cozy Mystery in, I'm going to create a hold event. So I'm going to come in here to the Hold Events tab, and I'm going to click New Hold Group Event. And I'm going to put my TCN for my new title record in here. These will automatically be title records that are used for these hold groups. You can't do meta record hold and you can't do copy level holds, only title holds. And you do have to have the TCN. So you can't do a search from here. You need to know what you're going to be placing your hold on prior to getting to this point. But I'm going to put in my TCN and click Create Event. And I've now created an event for A Doom Full of Sugar. My users, all 4 of them, now all have a hold on this title. So if I go into one of their records and I go into their holds tab, I see that she's got A Doom Full of Sugar. She has that hold placed. I only had to do it, click one button for it, and that hold was automatically placed on everyone in that group. Whether I have 4 people in the group or 25, it's a single click. And then every single person in that group will have that hold. The order is randomized. So if, the only copy available is in my library, then all 25 of those people are going to have to wait in line for that. One of them will get it first this time, but then with the next cozy mystery that I buy, somebody else will get it first. So the order that they go into the queue will be different each time. Um, this can be useful for book clubs. It is especially great for those types of situations where you have patrons who have a specific interest and they always want to go on hold for the new titles you get in that interest, whether it's an author or a genre. This is a good way to kind of allow your patrons to take advantage of that service. Now we are at 11:01. I do want to show you the other type of multiple holds. So if you are able to stick around for another couple of minutes, please do. Otherwise, you'll be able to catch it in the recording. But the other type of multiple holds is just called multiple holds. And that allows you to place multiple title level holds on the same bib record for the same account. So what this means is that if you have an institutional account or a staff account for your book club, and it's a rotating book club where each month you may have a different set of patrons who are participating, but you always want to get about 10 or 15 copies of a title for people to use for that book club. Instead of going in and placing 15 copy level holds for that book club account, you can go and place 15 title level holds for that book club account. And this allows you to get a more efficient fulfillment. You don't have to run the risk that one of those copies will become lost or missing and therefore be hopeless. You're going to have the more standard targeting approach for all of those copies, but they're all able to be on a single account. So if my library had an institutional account for my adult book club, I could go into my adult book club's account, and I could go into their holds tab and click place hold, just like I would for a sort of a standard patron hold, and search for the next title that we'll be reading as this book club. Once I've found it, you would have to do separate. So you could do a single one for this, for the regular print. So in chat, somebody asked about book clubs that want both large and regular print. And we'll go ahead and do that. So we'll start by making a multiple hold request on the regular print, which is down here. We'll click place hold. There we go. And when the patrons information comes up here, you'll see that a new line is added for number of copies. I can put this at 15 and place hold. And now if I come down to my to the actual holds grid here, I can see that I'm getting 15. And they're all going to be item age protected because they're all brand new. So once this is complete, I'll just override that. So you would need a circlead to override in a situation like this. If it's not age hold protected, it should go through fine. All right, so I'm going to override these, and now they're all succeeding. If I return back to my, oh, that is not the patron I wanted. I'm not sure why that happened. So that would be the way that I would do that for the regular print. Now, if I do have a book club that wants both large and regular, I just repeat the process. And so instead of being able to do it once, I have to do it twice, but then I get 30 copies for 2 actions instead of 30 copies for 30 actions. I would just come in here to the large print, place hold, repeat the process. We have a question. If an item is age hold protected, once the age hold goes off, will the system automatically fulfill the hold? Yes. Whoever's at the top of the queue, once that age hold protection goes away, will be the next person to receive it. Patrons will continue to sort of move up the queue, but if the person at the top of the queue prior to age hold protection is not within the system, they would just be skipped and it would go down to the next person who is within the system until the protection expires, at which point it would go to the top of the queue. Does that make sense? All right, so that is the process of multiple holds. It is a fairly new feature. Still kind of testing it out and seeing how it's going for people. So, if that works for something, a need you have at your library, I do encourage you to use it and let me know how it goes. If there's something weird that happens, let us know so that we can kind of investigate it, because it did go live with our most recent upgrade, and we're still kind of trying to figure out all the ins and outs of it when it's working at scale. Um, since we are at 11, we're not going to go into the stuff about the pull list, but we will do a resource sharing webinar at some point this spring, and at that point we'll talk about the pull list. So I'm sorry that we didn't get to that today. Are there any questions about anything we covered or anything that we didn't? Um, Thanks, Lauren. I'm glad you were able to make it, and I hope that you got some questions answered. Um, well, I really appreciate everyone being here today. I'm Oh, great. Thanks, Billy and Kate. I'm glad you were able to be here, and always glad that uh, I can share some information with these new staff series things. I'm always worried that I'm uh, just going to tell people stuff they already know, because you guys are the real experts out there, like actually doing this live for real patrons. So it's always good when I can find a new feature. Um, Yeah, I think multiple holds, we turn that on specifically with book clubs in mind, because we've had so many people who've expressed frustration with placing holds for book clubs. So I'm really glad um, that's working. Um, yeah, holds are tricky. It seems like it should be very straightforward up front, but once you kind of get into the weeds of it, all kinds of things pop up. So I'm glad this was helpful for people. If you do run into weird things as you're trying to work with holds, um, reach out, because we're always happy to help you figure out what's going wrong. And a lot of times it just comes down to funky hold policies that are interacting in unexpected ways. But we're always happy to look into that. So please never hesitate to come to us with questions about holds. I appreciate everyone being here today. I will get this recording up by the end of the week, and I hope that everybody has a great Tuesday.